Today in the Trailer Hood, we're going to talk about toys I grew up with that make you think.
This is the Old Guy Network.
Yep.
Welcome back to the Old Guy Network. I'm the Old Guy, the OG, Jay, and we're having a beautiful day in the Trailer Hood, and I'm so glad you dropped by. I love it when you drop by because I get very lonely in the wintertime because I just do. And today we're going to talk about something a little different because on this channel, I do things a little different once in a while. Now, a lot of times I'll do unboxings, which I love to do. They're the most popular videos on the channel, and I do have a couple of unboxings coming up. As a matter of fact, I'm waiting right now for a Palm router to show up in the U.S. mail, and a few days from now, I'm hoping to get something else which I'm really excited about, and that is a CNC machine. Now, don't get too excited. It's not one of those great big industrial ones. It's just a small one. But it's not only a router CNC machine to do carving, and 3D carving, 2D carving, but it also has a laser, which I'm pretty excited about. So, yeah, I'm going to have those in just a little while. But until then, I got something else in mind. I like to try to help people out as much as I can, especially the older folks. I mean, come on. We need the help, don't we? I like to give helpful tips, hints of different things and how to live your life a little bit better and that sort of thing. But now, this is mostly directed to your kids or grandkids. It's for you, but it's for them too. And that is the 4 toys that I grew up with that were construction toys. Toys that taught kids how to do things, how to think, how things went together, how motors worked, how wheels worked, gears, drive belts, things like that. So I've got 4 toys in mind, and in this order we're going to do newest to the oldest, because I was really surprised how long these toys have been around. Some of these toys are extremely popular today, others not so much. And you probably didn't think of these toys when you were out, shopping for Christmas presents or actually going online looking for Christmas presents, because let's face it, nobody goes out to stores anymore. But you didn't think of these toys. Maybe next year you will, and maybe they have a birthday. Someone has a birthday coming up as a young boy or girl who would be interested in a mechanical toy or a building block type toy. So let's get started with this right now. These are the 4 construction toys that I grew up with that I don't think we can get enough of. The very first one we have to talk about, of course, this has been around for a long time. The Lego. Have you ever woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning having to go to the bathroom and you step on one of your kids' Legos? It's very, very painful. So I'm sure that most people out there who have had kids or grandkids, they know what a Lego is. And, we've had building blocks forever. I mean, blocks, we've had those for a very long time. But how long have we had Legos, the interlocking building blocks? Well, you might be surprised that these were actually invented by a company that started building stuff, wood manufacturing, back in 1895. And then that company was sold to a gentleman in 1916. His name was Ole Kirk Christensen of Denmark. But in 1949, he started producing the Lego. 1949. I didn't realize they'd been around that long. We've only had them in this country since the 60s. Now, I'm not sure. I think it was 1964 when they came around, but I know we had them when I was a little kid. In the growing up in the early 70s, we had them. And back then, that's what they looked like right there. You had sets, but you could also buy individual parts, and build your own stuff, use your imagination and create different things. Nowadays, it's all about the kits. If you want to build something from Minecraft, well, they make a kit for that. If you want to build the Millennium Falcon, well, they make a kit for that. Pretty much anything, they make a kit. And this is probably the most successful toy that's going to be on this list. I only got 4 toys on here, so this is probably the most successful. I mean, when you think about it, there have been movies, there have been games, there have been competitions all over the world. there have been 8 Legoland amusement parks all over the country, and I believe in other parts of the world. I mean, come on, this thing is huge, right? And when you realize, reported that over 600 billion Lego parts had been produced. 600 billion. That's almost as many of those McDonald's hamburgers, right? But that's a lot of Legos. So yeah, this gives every kid the opportunity to put stuff together, to use their brain to think how things go together, and to how to follow directions, how to actually read directions and make something, build something. And I think it's really, really important that we do that because we don't have shop class in most high schools now. There's no home ec in most high schools, and we don't teach kids stuff like this. And the Lego, I think, is one of the best inventions. So the next toy that we're going to talk about, this is, again, not the oldest, but it's been around for a very, very long time. And it was created by somebody who was pretty damn famous. And that is the Lincoln Logs. Do you remember these? It was the first time I can remember where we could actually make something that looked like something it was supposed to represent. I'm going to talk about another toy a little bit later on. You can make stuff, but it didn't really look like what you were trying to build. This looked like a cabin. The very first ones actually came in a little box, and it had a picture of Lincoln's portrait, and you built Lincoln's cabin, the boyhood home of President Abraham Lincoln, or something that looked kind of like it anyway. But this came all the way either 1920 or 1924. We're not really sure because there seems to be some discrepancy on exactly when they started producing these. But they were actually invented, I believe it was 1916, and it was invented by a guy by the name of John Lloyd Wright. Now, that name sounds a little familiar. If you're familiar with Frank Lloyd Wright, the famous architect, that's because John Lloyd Wright was his son. Frank Lloyd Wright actually came up with a way to put structures together using notches in logs and in beams that were structurally sound, but the buildings could flex, so you could build these buildings on an earthquake line and they wouldn't fall apart. And it was John Lloyd Wright, his son, who said, hey, I think we can make toys out of this. And he received a patent in 1920. He actually designed these toy logs in 1918. So that's where the discrepancy is. And some people say that he didn't actually start selling these things until about 1924. But these were everywhere. And I had this toy myself. My canister of Lego logs looked exactly like this one. And my dad used to help me with these, and we'd make different things. I think I had a couple of these so we could make larger cabins, we could make other structures, and it was pretty cool. I mean, you can still buy these things today. They've changed a little bit. The logs aren't round anymore. Actually, they're an octagonal shape now, so they actually fit together. And as I understand it, the original full-size logs that they made houses out of, they were more like this. But it's pretty cool. This toy has been around for a very, very long time. Before Legos, of course, but not before our next toy that I'm going to mention, and this is one of the oldest ones that I got. As a matter of fact, the first construction toy I ever got was this one here. And I'm talking about Tinker Toys. You remember these? You could build a windmill. It kind of looked like a windmill, but it didn't look exactly like a windmill. You could build an airplane that kind of looked like an airplane. And there was some other stuff that you could do. It was a toy that taught you not only how to put things together and read directions and that sort of thing, but you actually learned about friction, how gears worked, because it had some moving parts to it. And this is the very first toy that I had that was a construction toy that had moving parts. So that was pretty cool. And again, my dad used to build stuff with me, and most of the time, though, my brother and I, we would just throw the little spools, the wood spools, we just throw those at each other. But you could build all kinds of things. As you can see on the containers themselves, and I believe they still do this, they print the pictures of the projects you can make. And, there's a helicopter and I don't know what the heck that thing in the middle is, but there's an airplane that sort of looks like an airplane. But these things were very creative. And they came to us all the way back in 1914. Tinker Toys were one of the many building or construction-oriented toys invented in the early decades of the 20th century. They, along with the Lincoln Logs and the next toy we're going to talk about, were meant to help kids learn through play. And like I said, the Tinker Toy was first released in 1914. But the granddaddy of all of them is a toy that I just loved. And this was the first toy that I ever had that I learned how wheels work, how they work in conjunction with making a vehicle. I learned how gears really, really worked. Levers, drive belts, pulleys, putting things together with a wrench and a screwdriver and using nuts and bolts. And that, of course, I couldn't be talking about anything except the erector set. These were the coolest toy in the world, at least to me. And I can't imagine there's any engineers out there that weren't affected by an erector set. They had to have one of these, especially NASA engineers. If you're a kid and you want to learn how things go together and how gears work and all that, this was the perfect toy. I mean, think about it. They even used an erector set in the movie The Sandlot. Do you remember that? They used it to retrieve a baseball from their neighbors. And the erector set was a brand of metal toy construction set, which were originally patented by Alfred Carlton Gilbert, or A.C. Gilbert, and first sold by his company, the Misto Manufacturing Company of New Haven, Connecticut, way back in 1913. Can you imagine that? 1913, we actually had toys that were made out of metal, and not the safest toys. I cut myself a lot on the sharp edges of the metal. But I had my father there to show me how to handle these things, safely. And but this toy was it was amazing. And the original ones came in a wooden box, just like this one pictured here. The one that I had looked just like this. It was a metal toolbox, and I thought that was the greatest thing. I was a kid, and I had a red metal toolbox, just like my dad had a red metal toolbox in his garage. And he taught me how to put things together, how motors worked. This was the first vehicle that I ever had. I made a little vehicle, and you could run it with a remote control. It had a wire on it, so it wasn't wireless like today's radio controlled vehicles, but it was the coolest thing. You didn't just sit there and run it across the floor, with hand power or friction power. You could actually control it, make it go forward and backwards. They didn't have any steering. At the time, I had mine. But that's what I had. And today, you can still buy an erector set. You can still get them. There's a lot of cool-looking gizmos. They do all kinds of stuff. They have actuators on them. They have all the metal parts, gears, pulleys, drive belts. They still come in a case, but it's a plastic case now, but it's still kind of a cool looking case. I still like the old metal one that I had. I think that was the best one. But this was, like I said, a guy by the name of Alfred Carlton Gilbert came up with this way back in 1913. But I do miss all the toys that I had, the erector set, even the Tinker Toys, the Lincoln Logs, and the Legos. I wasn't a big Lego guy. I had some Lego sets, the small ones, but all of them taught me an important thing. They taught me how to use my brain and construct something, how to build something. It's why I make my little boxes. I love putting stuff together like that. Why I make those squirrel picnic tables and full-size tables and furniture. And I know how all that goes together based on what I did when I was a kid. I mean, I had these toys, and I actually learned how to do stuff. When next time Christmas rolls around or our birthday rolls around, and get them the electronic stuff too, because your kids want that. But get them something that helps make them think. You might be surprised. You might have a future engineer on your hands, or a mechanic, or at least a guy that knows how a motor works. You know, that would be pretty good. Or a girl. Yeah, them too. So that's it. The 4 toys that I did grow up with that I think every kid should own and learn how to do stuff. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit like and click the share button. And if you haven't done so, for crying out loud, would you just subscribe to the channel already? It doesn't cost you a damn thing and only takes a second to do that. So I'll see you back here at the Trailer Hood the next time for the Old Guy Network. I'm the Old Guy. I'm the OG. And I'm out.